they've done, who they've beaten, and all the things when you put it in together, I don't understand why they're not flag favourites.
Well, here's who they've beaten, Jace. You can just see there they've played the top 8. They've played them 5 times for 3 wins and 2 losses. And the bottom 8, well, they've just gone about their duties there, haven't they? I think the only loss there is to the Richmond Footy Club. So everyone keeps telling me they haven't beaten anyone, but they actually have. They're very competitive every week, Rocket.
Oh, for sure. And I think they were very unlucky to lose to Adelaide because Goodsey went off in the early in the squad. I think it was a great win by Adelaide. Certainly nothing taken away from them. But they've beaten Hawthorn. They're playing some really good footy. They're very good defensive side, as we know, but they've really opened up the attacking side of their game.
Yet no one talks about them.
No one talks about it. And it's surprising because they're out of sight, out of mind a lot of the times. But let's have a look at why they've improved from last year to this year in a numbers sense and in terms of what we can relate to. I think that when you look, they're playing a quicker brand of football. 6th in terms of handballs last year, averaging 130 odd to about 160 this year. That's given them more inside 50s, up about 10%. Then you go down to the actual scores. That's translated into an extra couple of goals a week, so far more offensive. Their punishment of turnovers and the number of turnovers has gone up. You can see they're number 1 in the competition now for forcing turnovers and their ability to put that on the scoreboard. When you consider last year, those sides that really forced turnovers and then punished, the 2 best teams were Collingwood and the Cats. That just builds great signs for them. This has been the same. Their defence again, another goal there, Jace. It's 3-goal turnaround. When you look at the 2 goals that they've picked up offensively and the 1 extra they've got defensively, they haven't lost their brand and they're still, really exciting to watch.
Yeah, and I know they've lost Parker, who I thought was a really good kid. He's going to be a good player, but their midfield depth also is very good. And they're playing McVeigh in different spots, goes to wing, goes to half forward, and there's obviously Kennedy. Jack's a really good player, as we know. So they've really got a good balance right the way through.
Absolutely. You talk about that defensive side, but their back 6 is really good. Obviously, Grundy, a former rookie, has been elevated and has been a fantastic player for a number of years. Ted Richards leads the competition in spoils and intercept marks, so he's a really good player. I mean, you must, when you go into planning against the Sydney Swans, how you separate these guys. And I mean, we saw on the weekend when they were playing the Brisbane Lions, I'm sure Jonathan Brown would have been very frustrated at times with what happened because there was too many players around him. We see the ball's in dispute on the wing. We see Karnizis and Richards at the bottom of the screen with Brown and his opponent there. Now, Brisbane gain possession here. Problem is Karnizis runs towards Jonathan Brown and allows Ted Richards to get past him and creates a sport. Now, Brownie's done everything right there to take an easy mark. Let's have a look at it again. Now, Karnizis, this is where he does go. Where he probably should have gone is at least try to get Ted Richards out of that area by drawing the ball forward. Now, Richards would have dropped off a little bit, but not that far. What happens here? Gets rid of his man. The red cross is where they should have been. And Brown takes an easy chest mark by himself. 2 minutes, or actually, in the same play, rebounds out, comes back in 30 seconds later. Exactly the same situation. Once again, either hold Ted Richards out in that position, Karnizis, or lead hard and try to draw him out of that area. Exactly the same thing. Doesn't hold him out, doesn't draw him out by a hard lead. Ted Richards jumps here, spoils over the back again. Now, I'd imagine Brownie would just about want to have a little word to him. 2 minutes later, this is the good side of things. This is what needs to happen more often against the Sydney Swans. Now, Karnizis and Brown both coming back towards goals. Brownie's got the one-on-one 30 metres out. Karnizis got a little bit of separation from Ted Richards, who's covering the dangerous space. The good thing there is Karnizis started to lead forward, making Ted Richards at least be accountable for a short period of time. Now, the kick was always going to be tough to defend anyway, but that was a prime example 2 minutes later of what to do. Attack the ball, separate Grundy and Richards because they're too good.
And I think the main thing of the Swans' defence is they do roll off, don't they? They do roll off their own opponent to support each other, and I think you need to have that separation. Richards is probably in All-Australian form. He's they certainly had his best season, and I think his ability to judge in the air and actually when to roll off. And that, I know he's a young lad, Karnizis, but obviously he needs to be educated when to run or where to run and when to lead.
Talking about All-Australian form, I reckon Lewis Jetta is just about a lock for All-Australian the way he has played this season.
He's now, in my opinion, nearly as important to them as Adam Goodes, and I want to show you some of the damage that he does off the back of stoppage situations. Rocket, you would have seen this 100 times throughout the course of the year. I think he's nearly the most improved player in the competition. We've seen the damage he's been able to bring to those numbers that the Swans have brought to the table this year. Let's have a look here. You can just see at the back of the stoppage here, Adcock loose man for Brisbane, and they've left Lewis Jetta free, and I just can't believe he's the one that you'd leave free. Doesn't get the initial possession or the clearance. His clearance numbers aren't great, but just receiving off those clearances. You see him here. He tracks down the ground, unopposed. Ball goes into the forward line. Bit of a spill around, bit of a hacking type play. He's all alone. We've seen him kick long range goals all year. It's just perfect play. He understands space really well. And I just think it's allowed them to keep Goodsy forward now. He normally kicks those. He's kicked a lot of goals this season, largely because of the space he's been allowed. Just making his way across here to a stoppage that's going to be at roughly the half-back flank. You can just see him there, top of screen, working his way across. Again, you can see Adcock on the wing line here. He's going to drop back as that loose man. This simply doesn't work. I don't think you can allow Lewis Jetta this sort of space. Again here, it's not so much what he does, it's what he threatens to do that is also a key. Here he's got some space, half rounded up by a Brisbane player, but they get engaged in the play. Jetta there, we can see, he's alone, all alone there now, 15 yards off that stoppage. He decides to go. Bottom of the screen, Adcock now knows he's going to break into space, so he rolls up. He gathers another bit of attention from another Brisbane line there, and of course 2 and 3 come to him, and then that allows the overlap. So the threat of Lewis Jetta is also a focus. That goes down the ground, goes for goal. Don't need to see that whole play. Here, Swans are going to the top of screen. Lewis Jetta goal side, Adcock back in the hole there. I just can't believe the space that he was allowed on the weekend. And if you allow him this sort of space in game, he will make you pay.
I think it's one thing, Rocket, to have there's no problems dropping off, but if Adcock's going to drop off, someone up at the stoppage has to take accountability.
You pick him up and be goal-sided because he's got so much speed and he's such a good kick now that he certainly can be damaging.
Now, there's some players when you go into the game that you just will not allow any space. So if Lewis Jetta's by himself, you drop off your man and go to him.
Yeah. Well, you have a look at a lot of teams will tag him, and if there's a dangerous player of an opposition side, that they will tag that player. But if you don't tag a player, you've got to minimise the space, especially a player who's got that much speed.
Probably a few, though, midfielders that look at him and go, no, I don't really want to pick him up. He might be a bit too showy for me.
Let's just have a look at the actual numbers that he's delivered this year, because I think he's been a revelation this year for Sydney. He's number 1 Swan for inside 50. He's top 5 in the competition for that. He's kicked 32 goals this year. That's ranked 8th in the Coleman. That's an amazing season. And he's the number 1 Swan for score involvements, which is top 10 in the AFL. So the returns from this young man have been unbelievable. I think going into a final series, it gives him another queen in chess, if you like, that real piece that you can just have so much power with. And I think that Goodsy will stay forward because this bloke has been terrific around the action.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that he does, he gives them good balance because they've got so many tough inside midfielders, haven't they? Bolton, and they've got Kennedy, they've got McVeigh, they've got Jack as well, who can get outside as well, but having a player like that, it gives them that speed on the outside is a real bonus.
Yeah, King, some really good points there, and the numbers certainly indicate that the Swans are on the up. Now, you mentioned Lewis Jetta. He came via the 2009 draft, which was a fantastic draft for the Sydney Swans. Kinnear Beatson and his team up there and the coaching staff, they were able to go for Gary Rowan, pick 6, so you're obviously going to get a good quality player. Again, pick 14 was Lewis Jetta, and as you said, Jace, he's all Australian. Sam Reid at 38, that's a fantastic pick. Then their trades. So 22 was Mark Seavey was traded in for pick 22. Traded in was Shane Mumford for pick 28. Josh Kennedy for pick 39, and obviously Ben McGuinn for pick 46. So, I mean, some really good trades, and those players weren't just to pinch hit for a year or two. They're long-term recruits to that club. I mean, Seaby's out of the side at the moment, but there's some star players for the Sydney Swans that come via that 2009 draft where we thought maybe their window was starting to close. Looks like it's starting to open up again.
I reckon the Swans have proven themselves one of the best sides at earmarking fringe players at other clubs, giving them opportunities and turning them into regulars.
Yeah, I think they probably look at their list and say, we've got a hole here, we've got a hole there, and they don't go for a superstar. They just say, well, OK, this player will suit this role. I think Mumford was obviously a real good get, but when you look at Kennedy, obviously suits their ground. They probably thought, I think he's become a better player than they would have thought as well. But they thought he wasn't getting a chance at Hawthorn, which obviously had a lot of midfielders in front of him at that stage.
Every player improves in Sydney. That's the thing for me. Every player gets better, regardless whether they're in the side or not. They've all improved.
Well, this is a massive game on the weekend, one we're all looking forward to. West Coast taking on the Sydney Swans over at Patterson Stadium. We know these two teams always put on a close match, and it will be exclusively live in Melbourne on Fox Footy. That's Sunday twilight footy at 4:40pm Eastern Standard Time. This is a match that I think is going to give us a very clear picture about just how bona fide the claims of both these teams are. And it wouldn't surprise you, particularly with West Coast having a few out, Sydney every chance to go over there and roll them.
Oh, for sure. And I think you have a look at their last 8 or 9 times they've played. It's been very close, and the Sydney have won in Perth as well. But with Waters out, if Shuey's not successful as well at the tribunal, maybe puts the favour in front of the Swans.
And a few of their injuries are coming back. Mumford's been back for 5 weeks and getting some fitness now, and same with Adam Goods, 3 weeks back in, found some form on the weekend.
Kangaroos had a massive game down in